for me, it was like one of my biggest life lessons, I would say, not just business lessons, but life lessons, where I was in this spot where all the experts were telling me what to do, right? To have the best chance of success in that moment when I'm standing there shaking like a leaf on TV. All the experts told me one thing, but like my gut told me a totally different thing. And sometimes in life, it's so hard when it's like, and by the way, for a lot of us, it's like other people's opinions or like our family or friends or whatever, they're doubting our dream or they're giving all their input, and it becomes so noisy that we almost can't even hear what our own gut's telling us. And what happened in that moment was after 3 years, so you guys imagine pouring all your savings in and you launch your dream and you think it's just gonna work. And then for 3 years, QVC said no.
One of my favorite Oprah stories from Believe It is you're about to go on QVC and you're stressing out because you only have 10 minutes and you've bought all this inventory that's kind of make or break, and you want to do it your way and show real people and show your real face with the skin issues that you had, and everybody's telling you no, it's the wrong thing, and you drive to the parking lot and you're sitting outside QVC, and then you imagine Oprah and Color Purple and how she manifested that. Take us a little deeper into that story.
Yeah. I feel like, thank you for asking that question. I feel like there's probably people that follow you and there's stories you share, and then they grab onto those, right? And they tap in. We can all tap into other people's stories to give us strength. And it's really why I wrote this book too, is because my prayers, all the stories and struggles and lessons I've gone through, hopefully someone else can grab onto those and use them in their own journey. So yeah, one of those big stories was after 3 years of hearing no from all the beauty retailers, all the department stores, right? I created a product that I believed in. And a lot of people watching us right now, maybe that are entrepreneurs or that are creating something, and maybe you're in a space where you're like not getting the traction you hoped, or you're having people tell you no or not believe in you. That was my journey for 3 years. So everyone had been telling us no. QVC had said no time after time after time. And we finally got this big break, Evan. We finally got this big break, and we were going to get one shot on QVC. And it meant we had this 10-minute window to either sell our product and hit the sales goal or not come back, right? And just to give everyone a little bit of context, QVC's live television shopping channel would broadcast to 100 million homes. And at the time, Evan, we were still just selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, barely staying alive. 3 years into the business, hearing no after no after no after no, not knowing if we're going to make it. And we get this one shot to go live in this 10-minute window. And so I'm like, okay. And then I learned it's a consignment deal, which means that we're not pay. So we have to pay for all the inventory, right, to make it, ship it in. And then we go on air and we're only paid for what sells. And I learned then that we would need to sell over 6,000 units of our product to hit the sales goal in a 10-minute window. So 6,000 units in this 10-minute window. Meanwhile, Evan, I'm like, eat like it was a date night. Me and my husband would have a date night if it was like the $1 hot dogs at Costco. And I don't know if you've ever been to a Costco and the outdoor hot dog stand, and you go there and it's $1 for a hot dog, and they're good hot dogs, but like that's as fancy as we were down, right? And so to figure out, okay, wow, everything's on the line for our business, we have to figure out how we had to borrow money. We got turned away from 22 banks. It was the 23rd bank that said yes, which is a small bank in California, gave us an SBA loan just to cover the amount of inventory to do this one airing on QVC. So everything was on the line. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was so much for me to handle. It felt so heavy. And I flew out to QVC, which is just outside of Philadelphia, a week before we got this one shot to go live. And I knew in that one shot, we were either my whole life would be changed, or we were going to go bankrupt and out of business. And it felt so heavy, and here's why. We hired third-party consultants who are amazing at helping people sell on television and sell their products in stores and all those things, and they help so many people. And they all told me the same thing. They said, if you're going to have a shot at succeeding, in this 10-minute window, here's what you need to do. You need to put this type of model on the air, which was all women with perfect skin. And I said to them, but the authentic reason I started this company is because I don't have perfect skin. Like, I have bright red rosacea. It gets bumpy everywhere. And I'm like, you know, I created this product because there's so many people out there like me who can't find anything that works. I'm like, QVC is alive. You can't fake it. You can't Photoshop it. I'm like, I want to go on television and like prove it live. You have to remember, Evan, this is before Instagram Live. This is before YouTube, right? And I was like, and no one was doing this. I'm like, let me just take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea. Let me prove live how this product works. And I had this vision of putting real women of all different ages and shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin problems and all this stuff. And let me show live on them. And these expert consultants were mortified. Like, they're like, listen, and they wanted the best for me, but they're like, if you're getting one shot and we want you to win, and here's what you need to do. You need to put this type. Women will only buy makeup from people who have perfect skin, who they'll never be able to look like. And so I was being told this message, and I feel like every one of us in our life, we have moments in our life where our gut instinct is telling us one thing and other people are telling us another. Other experts are telling us another. Other, people's opinions or the world that maybe we're not having success in our business yet, that lack of traction makes us feel like maybe our gut instinct's wrong. So the moment you're talking about, I flew out a week ahead of time, a week before this 10-minute window. I sat in the QVC parking lot and I sat in this rental car all alone. And I just stared at the front door of QVC. And I knew the next time I walked through that door, my whole life was going to change, or I was going to be bankrupt and my whole life was going to change for that way. And I just sat there praying and crying. And then it felt heavy. And I felt like, okay, it's easy in life for us to know what we stand for, but then like often our values are put on the line. Do you know what I mean? And I was in this moment of going, and honestly, self-doubt started to enter my head. I'm like, I had thoughts of like, oh, well, I don't want to go bankrupt. So maybe if I listen to them and do it their way, the third-party consultants, if I do it their way to start with, and then I have success, and then I try it my way. I had all these thoughts. But I also know you can't fake authenticity. I also know the second you show up as who other people want you to be, you create a barrier of disconnection between you and any other human being, including an audience, including your customers, right? So I knew that. And I sat in that car freaking out every day for a week. And I prayed and I cried. And then I'm like, what would Oprah do? And I remember a show where she said she wanted the color purple so bad that she ran around a track and was praying the song I Surrender All and crying. And so I started singing I Surrender All, and I literally asked God to take it from me because it felt so heavy. And I also just remembered, who is this person I'm talking to? If I'm going to have one shot in 10 minutes on QVC, like, I imagined, for some reason, I kept imagining a single mom, like folding laundry, who was too busy to remember that she mattered and too busy to remember that she's beautiful. And I just thought about, like, if I was going to get the blessing of 2 seconds of her time and she's going to turn on her television and see me live on QVC, I wanted her to look up and see other women who look like her and see me calling them beautiful and meaning it, even if she didn't buy a single thing. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to stand for something, then sell a ton of product and stand for nothing. And that's really what it came down to. But sometimes we know what we need to do, but when it's the hard thing, it's hard. And I walked in that building for that 10-minute airing, and it was like one of the scariest things I've ever done, because it just felt so heavy. I was dripping sweat everywhere. I was a hot mess, to be honest. And like, I wasn't nervous for television, but I was nervous that my whole company was on the line. And I remember the 10-minute clock started, and it was like 9:59, 9:58. And we were live in front of 100 million homes. And I remember the moment my bright red bare face before shot came up, and then we walked over to all the models, and I showed all different women of different ages and skin tones and skin types and all sizes and shapes. And I remember there was about a minute left in the presentation, and the host started saying the shades were selling out. The deep shade is down to 100 units, and the tan, and I was just like, and then when the 10-minute mark hit and the sold out sign came right up across. Yes, that moment right there, I literally started sobbing.
34, everybody. 30.
So, you know, I think that in life, and listen, I've learned so much from experts. I continue to every single day. I am a lifetime student. And anytime I get advice from an expert, I think it's so important, or anybody, a friend, a family member, I think it's so important we check in with our gut and go, is that advice right for me? And I think our gut is always stronger than anyone else's advice. And our gut will tell us what the right advice is to listen to. And that was a life-changing moment for me. On the page you just showed. And when I look back at so many of the mistakes I made, they were when I didn't listen to my own gut and started to second guess myself. And a big reason I wrote Believe It is really just to talk about how do you go from, because, you know, my story, a lot of people think, oh, it's Denny's waitress turned billion-dollar entrepreneur. But my real story is a girl who didn't believe in herself and figured out how to, and didn't trust myself and learn how to tune in and hear my own intuition and trust it. And I just know it's the story of so many other people out there right now, watching us live right now, who I see in the comments. We're all on this journey in life, I think, of really learning, as you would say, Evan, to believe in ourselves and everything else.
Everyone listened so closely to this woman who sold her company for $1 billion plus. So here we go. Take us to the moment.
So yeah, one of the biggest lessons in my whole life came down to this moment where we finally got a shot on QVC, right? And so, you know, we had heard no from them for a couple years, and even Ed, I got their head guy named Alan Burke, who'd built this $1 billion division in QVC of beauty, and he's a legend, like an icon. After 2 years of no's from them, I finally got him on the phone. And I thought, oh my gosh, if he's giving me a few seconds of his time, like, this is good. Like, it's going to be a yes finally. And I'll never forget, on the phone, he says to me, you know, we've reviewed your products with our whole buying team, and it's unanimous. You're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. And so instantly I go into like, oh, but I am the right fit. Let me tell you why. And I start pitching my heart out, right? And he thanked me for loving QVC, and it was a no. So that was like one of the most memorable nights, because I don't know if you've ever had, you know, bad news in business or something like that. And you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh, fuck, it's like you hoped it was a dream.
Yes.
and it wasn't, right? It was like that for 3 days in a row. I just knew in my gut we're supposed to be on QVC. And it's so, and I knew for years, because I thought, Ed, oh my gosh, I can go live. And unlike all those ads I've seen my whole life that I don't even know if they're real, like, let me show real women, like my mom and my friends and let me show real women. And I believed it. And yet everyone kept telling me no. And finally, to get Alan Burke on the phone and hear, literally, I'm not the right fit. When you hear those words, it sucks, right? And by the way, like, anyone who's ever been told they're not enough and is tempted to believe it is why I wrote this book. Because there's a lot of people that work really, really hard. And there's a lot of people that still don't quit. They keep going. But like, making that decision to believe that you can and that your dream's possible, for me, that's huge. And I just like made the decision to believe it. And and every time I got rejected, whether it was from Alan Burke at QVC or any of the retailers for year after year after year, like, I would still approach them as if it was gonna be a yes, and send them sales updates and send them product launches. And they're like, who the F is that? And I'd keep, like, I just made that decision. So 3 years into this, we finally got this yes on QVC. And what happened with this yes and this one shot is literally one of the single greatest lessons I've ever learned in life and in business. So what this meant was we had one chance to sell our product in this 10-minute window live on QVC. And, you know, for anyone unfamiliar with QVC who might be listening, it's a live television show, and it's broadcast to 100 million homes. There's no script, no teleprompter. And what I learned, Ed, right before I went on, is that you're given 10 minutes in the case of the segment I got, but that's not a guarantee, right? If you go live and let's say a minute or two in, you're not hitting the sales goals, your clock cuts live. So you might be a minute or two in thinking you have 8 minutes left and you're not doing well. Boom, you're down to 1 minute. And you can calculate in your head how much money you just lost and what that means. So we get one shot, we get a yes. And this is like huge, right? Because I knew in my gut, like this is supposed to happen. And I'm going to show real women live. I'm going to shift culture and beauty. Like I knew it. And here's what happened. We got a purchase order and I quickly learned, we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, right? Packing them from our living room, just trying to survive, down to no money. Well, for a 10-minute window at QVC, we had to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer to hit their sales goal or not come back, and their consignment in beauty. So what it meant was if we didn't hit those numbers, we didn't sell in that 10-minute window, everything that we didn't sell got shipped back to us and we weren't paid for it. So, and you should never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose. Yeah. But in this case, it was like, we didn't know how we're going to make it either way. So I thought, okay, this is our one shot. This is going to be life-changing, right? So we hired these third-party consultants that are amazing and they're experts and they help a lot of people sell on television and in retail stores. And, we worked with them on, okay, how do we produce our 10-minute window? And the craziest thing happened, right? When we know what we stand for and we think that we're going to stand for it when it comes down to everything on the line, but then someone else tells you that that's not going to work, it's really hard not to question our own values and not to question our own intuition. These experts told me, in order to succeed, here's what you need to do. You need to use this type of model. And it was the perfect flawless skin, the models I'd always seen in TV ads. And I would say to them but that's actually not why I created this brand. And I would tell them, imagine if you're 70 years old sitting at home and you see someone you can't even relate to that doesn't look like you. How do you know the product's going to work for you? Or, I have rosacea, or 70% of people have hyperpigmentation. If they don't see someone that looks like them, and we would get into it and argue and fight, and they wanted me to win. But they were literally giving me the very best advice through the lens of their own experience. And the thing that I wish I knew, that I know now, but this would have saved me so many nights crying myself to sleep, is sometimes even experts, even the people that are touted visionaries, right? And they really are, and they would never admit this, but they still often can't imagine in their subconscious something succeeding if they haven't seen proof that it has before, right? And that would have made the rejection sting a lot less, because if you're doing anything authentically, anything that hasn't been done before, anything differently, people often can't even imagine it succeeding because of their own, right? And so all of them told me to do it. And they're like, listen, and we would fight. We got into it and they're like, we want you to win. So I was in this moment where I flew out to QVC in Pennsylvania a week early before this one shot on live TV to either, hit their sales goals or basically go out of business. And I went all alone and sat in this rental car in the QVC parking lot because it literally felt so heavy. I knew what my gut was telling me to do, but in that moment, I hadn't seen any proof that it was right. No proof in the form of sales anywhere. I mean, we're doing 2 to 3 orders a day for 3 years in. No other retailer saying yes. Everyone telling me you're not this enough or that enough. But those moments in life where we still have that knowing, it's so easy to doubt it. And it's so easy to think we're wrong and to not trust it anymore. And I sat in this rental car praying and crying and literally asking God to take this from me because it felt so heavy. I felt like everything came down to this moment. Honestly, I was tempted to go against my own gut. I was like, okay, well, maybe if I listen to what they're saying, right? Maybe I'll do that and I'll do really well for a while, then I'll try it my way. And I just sat in that car and it didn't feel right. And I just kept praying about it. And I would imagine like who my customer was on the other end. And for some reason, I don't know why, I kept imagining this single mom in Nebraska who was like folding laundry and way too busy to remember that she mattered and that she's beautiful. And I just had this moment I'll never forget the rest of my life in that car, that rental car, where I was like, it was just like, it hit me like a ton of bricks, where I was like, you know what? I would rather go on live television. If she's going to give me 2 seconds of her precious time and look up at her TV screen, like I would rather her see me up there showing real women who look like her, calling them beautiful and meaning it, and have her buy nothing. I'd rather do that than sell a shitload of product and like stand for nothing. So I knew what I had to do, but sometimes when we know what we have to do, it doesn't mean it's easy to do it. And honestly, like I was freaking out. I was so prepared. I had this demonstration on my wrist I was going to do that shows how our product doesn't crease and the top 2 department store ones do. And I get to the live studio, I walk in, we have our 10 minutes. And I go out there on the set live with the host, and I'll never forget, Ed, the clock was like, was it 10 minutes? And it's like 9:59, 9:58. Like, shit, like I'm on live, like this is happening, right? And I was trying to, and I felt literally sweat all the way dripping down everywhere. I didn't want to talk about that. I was free, and I'm not nervous for television, but everything was on the line. And I was trying to do this demonstration I had practiced a million times in my bathroom mirror. And my hand was like this. And I was trying so hard to do it. And the host was like, thank you, sugar. And she pushed it under. And I remember the moment my bare face, bright red rosacea, came up on national television, right? And I remember walking over to these real women and calling them beautiful and meaning it. And there was about like 1 minute left in the cell, in the 10-minute segment. And the host was like, the deep shade is almost sold out. The tan shade, we're down to 200. I was like, and then I remember literally right at the 10-minute mark, the sold out sign came up diagonal, like across the screen, and tears like start streaming down my face. And I remember my husband, Paulo, he came rushing through the double doors, and I'm like sobbing, and I'm like, real women have spoken. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I was like, ah! And that one airing turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year. And then we did 250 live shows a year. So I've done over 1,000 live shows myself on QVC, and we grew the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And it is right now at this moment, to this day. And I only share that because it was 3 years, right, of them saying no, and you're not the right fit. And no one can tell you you're not the right fit. You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like we hear those, every one of us has heard that in some form or another, that you're not the right fit or you're not enough. And I feel like those aren't the moments where you give up. Those are the moments like you get back up, and with God and grace and grit, like you keep hustling and you keep going and you keep following your knowing. And one more little thing to share with you, just on the topic of full circle moments. Alan Burke, who's the head legend, after we launched on QVC, right? He's the one that said no, and I was crying myself to sleep 3 nights in a row. And he told me I'm not the right fit for QVC, all that kind of stuff. After we launched on QVC, I ended up getting to know him really well. And he became not only a dear friend, but literally one of my greatest mentors in my entire career. He is right now, to this day, one of my greatest mentors. And, you know, he's the one that built that billion-dollar beauty, multi-billion-dollar empire at QVC for beauty. When he retired from QVC, we hired him in a paid position on our advisory board. So Ed, the guy that rejected me, was now working for me. Like, no one can tell you you're not the right fit, right? And so anyways,
you're amazing. You guys, listen to me on this. I went and I got to say that I love you. It's one of the great stories of all time, told by the person still living it. Why do you need to get the book? I'm not selling the book, guys. I'm just telling you. Why do you want to get the book? Why do you want to follow Jamie? Because she really did it. Do you know how rare it is in the business, entrepreneur, self-help space that it's not someone theorizing about things they think would probably work, but they've never applied? She did this. So what's in this book is gold. You don't have a lot of people on earth who have done what she's done And then even fewer are like, let me teach you how I did it and how I think. It's very rare. And it's why today's such a gift to be doing the show with you. I have to just tell you, it's interesting because we've met a couple times in green rooms or backstage and different things. And just so you know, Jamie is so kind and has so much humility. And you can't find anyone anywhere who has a bad word to say about her. She's just a beautiful spirit. And so I knew the story a little bit. And then I knew you were going to be on the show. So I was prepping. I already know the work that went in and I know the result, but I went and watched the clip when you showed your rosacea, right? Yeah. And I found myself, even though I know what happens, I was like, got butterflies in my stomach for you now, even though it's years later. I'm kind of saying quiet prayers for you. And I already know that you won, but it's such a poignant moment to go through all of that rejection. And I think you're giving so many people hope that you stuck to your guns about your beliefs as well.
What you described when you were going to QVC and you drive down the road and you see the big queue and you kind of get that feeling of, oh my goodness, I'm going to go on this show and it's this big platform and 100 million homes and you get so nervous. I related to you so much with that because I was on QVC and the pressure was on to sell a certain amount of units and, getting invited back. But, that first day that you were on QVC live on air, you shared a moment that I think a lot of people would not want to share or want to hide. And it was the moment in which the host had to grab your hand to stop you from shaking, to give you a moment to collect yourself. I mean, people need to read this because it's riveting, but from your own personal experience and from your voice, I think I just kind of want to hear how you manage specifically to breathe in that good air and calm down so that you can deliver the message and be steadfast to get where you needed to go.
Yeah, everything was on the line in that moment, right? And for me, it was like one of my biggest life lessons, I would say, not just business lessons, but life lessons, where I was in this spot where all the experts were telling me what to do, right? To have the best chance of success in that moment when I'm standing there shaking like a leaf on TV. All the experts told me one thing, but like my gut told me a totally different thing. And sometimes in life, it's so hard when it's like, and by the way, for a lot of us, it's like other people's opinions or like our family or friends or whatever, they're doubting our dream or they're giving all their input, and it becomes so noisy that we almost can't even hear what our own gut's telling us. And what happened in that moment was after 3 years, so you guys imagine pouring all your savings in and you launch your dream and you think it's just going to work. And then for 3 years, QVC said no. Their head guy, Alan Burke, got on the phone with me. One time I finally got him on the phone and he said to me, "You're not the right fit for QVC or our customers." This was 3 years of Sephora saying no, Ulta, every department stores. We finally got one shot, right? In this moment, Sean, that you're talking about, we had one shot. It was a 10-minute window. And literally we had to hit their sales goal or not come back. And the only reason that was really scary is because we were only doing about 2 to 3 orders a day on our website at the time. And so we were like eating the $1 hot dogs at Costco. That was like dining out, which was a gift because they taste good. Like all those things, right? Like that's where we were. And we finally, it's a crazy story, which I share in the book, how we got this one shot on QVC finally, but we had one shot and it was a 10-minute window to either hit their sales numbers or not come back. And the challenge here was that, we had to sell over 6,000 units of our product, our Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer, in this 10-minute window. And we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website. And it was consignment. And what that meant was we had to figure out how to get the money, which we didn't have, to pay for, manufacture, ship in all that product, 6,000 units. And consignment at the time for QVC is that if it doesn't sell, they ship it all back to you and you don't get paid. You don't get paid. And so we had applied for 22 SBA loans and got rejected. And it was the 23rd that gave us enough money. This bank gave us enough money just to cover that one order, right? and for QVC. And so we had met with these third-party experts, and they're awesome. They help a lot of people sell really well on TV. And they all told me the same thing, which is like, okay, if you want your best chance of success, here's what you need to do in your segment. Here's the kind of model you need to use. And what they told me was the same models I've been seeing my whole life on TV ads that don't look like me, that don't have skin problems, that don't, right? And I'm like, and all the same age. And I'm just like, and I would argue with them and say, okay, but like, that's not my authentic why for why I created this. And like, what if I just like take my makeup off on national TV and show my bright red rosacea and like prove the product works and show, you know, models of all different ages and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges. Like, cause then if I'm sitting at home, let's say I'm sitting at home and I'm 70 years old and I'm like, you know, don't like my hyperpigmentation, whatever it is. If I don't see someone who looks like me, like, how am I going to know it works for me? Right. And we would get into it. And like, here's the thing I wish I knew, because this would have saved me a million nights crying myself to sleep, is so many times experts, like, they want the best for you. They believe, they also tout themselves as visionaries a lot of times, but like subconsciously they're only, if you're doing something totally different, right? Like something new, something novel, your own take on it. Like so many experts are only capable, and they would never admit it, but they're only capable of thinking something's going to be successful if they've already seen it succeed before, right? So like, it's so hard when people don't believe in our dream or don't think it's going to work. And especially in this case, I put these experts on pedestals thinking like, oh my gosh, they've helped so many people. So meanwhile,
really fast.
Yeah.
Note of that. And I just I would love if you allow me to read this quote. I thought it was amazing. Where is it? You say in the book, to venture into unmapped territories, sometimes we have to take the experts off the pedestal we've created in our minds for them and put our intuition onto one. That is like, I just was like, yes. Anyway, I just wanted to I wanted people to hear that, because it was just such a powerful moment as I was reading. If I look down, it's because I have notes and you're saying something. Oh, and I want to give this quick little plug, if I can. So for years and years, I was like, I wore makeup in my very first workout videos, and I was like, I'm never wearing makeup again, specifically for the reason that it would be like cracked and I would look back. It's not that I didn't want it to, beautify my face. And as a male, like, I don't have a problem wearing makeup. Yeah. But when you talked about how you were bending, you put the makeup on and you were bending your wrists and comparing it to other makeup and how it didn't crack. When I was reading this book, I said, let me go get some It Cosmetics real quick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyways, cut you off, but I just needed people to hear that.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, so I love that you shared that quote too. And I love that touched you, because it was one of my biggest lessons of learning, and in that moment, by the way, it was all on the line, right? So the experts are telling me what to do. I don't have the luxury of trying it both ways. And I flew out to QVC a week early, sat in that parking lot, and I literally just sat in this rental car and I stared at the front door, and I watched people go in and out all day long. And I sat there and I cried and I prayed. It felt like it was so heavy, because I knew the next time I walked through those doors, like, I was either going to walk out with my whole life changed, or I was going to walk out bankrupt and out of business, also with my whole life changed. And I just sat in that car and I was like literally praying and crying. So I was like, it's so tempting when it's easy to go, oh, this is what I stand for. But like, when your whole business is on the line and you don't know if you're going to, it's really tempting to go, oh, well, maybe they're experts for a reason. And listen, experts are amazing to listen to in so many cases. And the way I decide who to listen to is I check in with my gut. And it's like, oh, does this feel right? Do I feel peace about it? Do I feel like, yes, this is right? And in this case, I didn't. I sat there in that car and I knew they were giving me the best advice they could. They wanted me to win, right? But my gut kept telling me they're wrong. And when we have those moments in life, it's really freaking scary and it's hard. And I just sat in there and I just imagined the women and men watching QVC. That I imagined the moment, if I was going to get 10 minutes and people were going to spend their precious time turning their TV station on and watching me. Like what did I want to stand for, right? And it came down to this moment in the car. For some reason, I imagined like this single mom in Nebraska folding laundry who was like too busy to remember that she mattered and that she's beautiful and all those things. And I was like, you know what? I'd rather have her turn her TV on, not even buy anything, and see me showing models that look like her. And I'd rather do that than like sell a ton of product and stand for nothing. And so it's like, I knew what I had to do, but sometimes we know, and it's not easy. And I remember, Sean, the moment you're talking about. So that I'm standing there in the live studio, right? And the 10-minute clock is going and it's about to start counting down. And it's like, boom, 9:59, 9:58. I'm freaking shaking. And I'm not even nervous for TV, but it was the fact that my whole company was on the line. It was coming down to this moment. And the other thing that's crazy, I didn't know this until I got on QVC the first time. The other thing that's crazy is if you're not hitting the sales goals like a minute or two in, right? They cut your time live. So it's not like you're guaranteed 10 minutes. Right? And it's like, if you're like 2 minutes in and you think you have 8 minutes left and you're not doing well, boom, your clock's at 2 minutes. You just lost so much money and you can't like try to sell because then nothing sells. And so anyhow, I'm there live and it's like 9:58, 9:58, 9:58. And I tried doing this demonstration that Sean's talking about, which is where and I'd practiced this like a million times in my bathroom mirror, right? And I had the two leading department store concealers that are so famous. I had them on my wrist along with ours. And I bend my wrist back and forth to show like, oh, they start cracking, creasing, and ours doesn't. So I planned this so many times. So there I am on live television in front of 100 million homes. Did not anticipate that my like whole body would be shaking like a leaf, like Scooby-Doo in the cartoon when he sees a ghost, like shaking to the point where the host finally grabbed my hand and she's like, "Thank you, sugar." And she pushed it under the thing. And I remember my bright red, bare face before a shot came up on national TV. And I remember walking over to all the real women I put as models, and there was like a minute left in the cell, and or maybe less than that. And I remember the host saying like, "The deep shade is almost gone. The tan shade, we're down to a few hundred." And I was like, oh. And then I remember at the last second, the sold out sign went up across the screen, and I literally start sobbing, right? My husband comes running through the double doors, and I'm like, real people have spoken. And he's like, "We're not going bankrupt." And then it was like crazy. And Sean, that one, by the way, this was years of no, right? You're not the right fit for us. And then that one airing turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year. And we eventually did 250 live shows a year on QVC and built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. And right now at this moment, it still is. And I only share that because it's like anyone listening right now is going through this season where they're like, oh, my idea, it feels right in my gut, but it's like, it's not getting traction, or my sales suck online, or all the retailers are saying no, or I'm not getting clients, or we go through those hard seasons. And so many people never make it simply because they just give up and they quit when it gets hard. And for me, when you really learn, and it's such a big part of why I wrote Believe It, my new book, because I feel like just spending that time, and it's a practice and it's a journey of learning to hear your own gut, right? And when you check in and it tells you you're on the right path, for me, that's what I listen to. I didn't listen to my bank account. I didn't listen to the fact we were only doing 2 orders a day for a long time, or all the retailers saying, no, you're not the right fit. I kept listening to that. And to me, that was one of the biggest things that, allowed us to build. And now it is the largest luxury makeup company in the country right now as of 2020, which is crazy, Sean, because when I was Denny's waitress, I'd save my tip money to try and buy a MAC lipstick and a Lancome eyeliner. Like, it was a big deal for me, right? And to think that this little company we started in our living room is now bigger than all of them, like, it's crazy, crazy, crazy.
I am obsessed with an idea that you have in the book about how all the hard things are going to, like we started with that quote, they're either going to break you or they're going to make you. And really that's up to you. And the stories you share in the book are really they draw you in with they are both entertaining because they're well written and well told. They're gut wrenching at times because I can imagine what it would be like to go through that. But they act ultimately as a yellow brick road in a way that I found very enticing in your book. And one of the bricks on the yellow brick road was that your father was an alcoholic. And you said something in the book that I was really impacted by, given my wife, Lisa, and what she's like. You said, my dad loved me, and he was a kind and gentle man who quietly struggled with alcoholism. And the way that you described that was very generous. And you said, but there were times that you would sit and stare at the clock, and because you had to wait for him to wake up, which your mom would be off working. And so sometimes it could be hours of waiting for him to wake up, and he would wake up, or you would get to the time where you were allowed to wake him up, and then he would ask you for an hour or two. And then I just imagine you sitting there watching the clock flip until he finally gets up and you guys can hang out. And in that, you said, my dad inadvertently taught me that women are superheroes that have to be stronger than men, because that's what my mom was, a superhero who's essentially doing everything by herself. And I was like, I know that it is, Jamie, I don't wish difficulties on anybody. But man, when they're looked at from the right lens, they make pretty extraordinary people. So that's a story you tell early in the book. The yellow brick road then leads to a photo of you and 7 of your friends, so you and 6 other people. And you break down. Every one of you guys has overcome. It's almost absurd. The fact that out of 7, 2 of you were adopted. There's breast cancer. There's learning difficulty. I mean, it was crazy. And yet, each and every one of them is absurdly successful. How do people harness difficulties like that to become something powerful instead of, leaning into the victim side, which anybody would understand, people pulling the victim card from that? But how do you pull something else?
The very first and most important thing on how is you have to want to. And I think that every human being can easily go into victim mentality on a lot of things that have happened in all of our lives, right? And it's a mentality that actually can, I think, reward you in a lot of ways, and also become a justification too for staying inside your comfort zone when it comes to things like going after your dreams. And it makes sense for a lot of people, right? And again, I think there's a time. I mean, I'm not going to speak to people that, I'm not going to speak to a lot of the really hard things that require a lifetime of work to figure out. What I will say is therapy is the best thing I've ever done in really understanding this. And I actually talk about that.
Does it allow you to recontextualize? Is that the idea?
Yeah, and to understand it at a deep level. And by the way, your show, like this conversation, to me, these are the things that are so important that we invest in ourselves and do, right? Because I don't want to stay in a place where it could be easy to stay at in my life. I think that the quote you started out with, when these tough times happen, do you warrior up or do you victim up? Do you level up or do you give up, right? The up is up to you. And I do believe why I share the story of my 7 closest friends is because I think this is important. I think a lot of people out there are like me and maybe have loving family, loving friends. But if you were to turn the volume up on all of them and they were to be your only inner circle, it'd be really easy for self-doubt to take over. It'd be really easy to dim your own light. And I talk about my journey of how I chose my circle around me. And it's never based on a commonality of life experience. It's my closest friends. And I think this is important for everyone listening, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have an inner circle that empowers me. How do I find one? I would say impact theory and Impact Theory University. That alone can be a part of your inner circle. That's a voice and conversations and information that you want to turn the volume up on. And I talk about this because I think this is universal for everyone and so important to do this. A lot of times people build their circle of friends based on
who they went to school with, or, you know, things they have in common and all the stuff, right? Maybe it's a group of people from work because you're around them all the time, whatever it is. And I think that that's not always the right thing. I think who your circle is so important. And for me, I go deep on this in the book and talk about each one of their stories, because I want to drive the point home that who you do surround yourself with, and when you judge them by their heart and how they pour into you and champion you and don't tell you this crap you just because you want to hear it, they tell you the real truth, which is so important. They don't get jealous when you're flying high. They want you to fly higher. I talk about this commonality of traits, and yet my closest group of friends have literally almost nothing in common. You know, their backgrounds are so different. They have different faiths and no faith. They one of them was homeless all growing up, then lived in the projects, and then figured out how to build her own circle and become an entrepreneur. And she figured out how to turn down the volume of negativity and lack of dreaming of all the people around her, for the most part, that she was raised in. And how did she turn that volume up on her own, like, inner light? And I share this common thread, really just to inspire a mindset shift sometimes of, oh, you know what? My circle of friends, you know, each person listening right now, my circle of friends, they don't need to think like I do, or pray like I do, or love like I do, or anything else. But like, if I surround myself with people that are truly telling the truth, loving me authentically, and uplifting and dreaming big with me, and calling me out on the BS when I start to like talk myself out of my own truth, right? Which we all do. It's a lifelong journey. Talk about the power of finding people like that and surrounding yourself with them. And I think they can be people in real life. And I also think that they can be people that you let pour into you who maybe you've never even met, like you, like your show for people. You know what I mean? I think that that's really powerful. Who we let speak into our lives and who we turn the volume down on but still love anyway is so important. Because one of our biggest mistakes is turning the volume up on the people just because we love them and they're our family. And then all of a sudden, that's all the noise we hear, and it impacts our whole life.
Talk to me about the ability to turn the volume up and down. That was one of the things I found really extraordinary in your book. Like, if I were going to do like a spoof of your book, it would go something like this. Somebody was really fucking mean. I cried like a motherfucker. And then I walked in the next room like a warrior. Like, it's that over and over and over. I love that. Like, every time. Well, I mean, you actually have a whole chapter in the book about swinging your big balls, which we should definitely talk about. But first, give me the idea. How do you turn the volume down? When you said that earlier about the guy who said, look, people aren't going to buy makeup from somebody that looks like you. How do we grab the volume knob on something that gnarly?
Yeah. I mean, it is such a disciplined practice. It's such a skill. It's hard. I mean, just yesterday, I had someone do something that I thought was like a super close friend, and I was just blindsided, and I felt so betrayed. And listen, we all go through these things, and they're hard. And one of my friends many years ago, Bob Goff is his name, he taught me this, and it just stuck. I just feel like it was so important to talk about it, because this tool that Bob had taught me, where he talked about your own microphone and then the volume dial. And he basically, I imagine, right? Because, you know, that I have this microphone. Everyone listening right now, imagine you have your own microphone, and you have to get into really good practice of like who you hand your microphone to and let speak into it. And what I had to learn, one example of this is, you know, my dad, who was an alcoholic, who was a good man with a really bad addiction, and loved me the best way he knew how, with his own capacity. And I remember I was, you know, working, I was always super ambitious. I wanted to get a car and go travel, all the things. So I had 4 jobs in high school. And, you know, I was working, one of my jobs, I was working in a health club, and I started as receptionist. And then they said, well, if you sell memberships, you'll make commission on those too. And I started selling a lot of memberships, and I was like, this is great. And so after high school, I didn't go to school right away. I moved out, got my own apartment. I was making like $55,000 a year, which was more than my dad at his job he'd been at. And I never forget when I made this decision I was going to go to school. I was like, okay, because I just wanted to get out, meet other people, and like figure stuff out. And I remember when I told him I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go to school, and he was mortified. He's like, what are you doing? Like, do you know how much money you're making right now? I mean, he was so upset and so worried about me that I was making a huge mistake. And so I remember even in that moment, you know, we all have experiences like that in our lives with our family, right? They're seeing things through their own lens of experience. But whether it's a story like that, or it's just a friend that you love hanging out with and you go to the gym with only, but anytime you share a hope and dream, all of a sudden you feel them lower your vibration. Like you feel it, right? Because they don't get it, or they don't like it, or whatever it is. Bob Goff taught me this, that basically you learn, oh, I'm going to take back my microphone from them on those topics, right? I'm going to talk to them about my workout today, or in my dad's case, you know, what's happening on the news or whatever. But I started learning with my own big hopes and dreams. I don't give other people my microphone who are then just going to literally lower my vibration because of their own lens of limitation. And it's the skill you develop. And when you imagine holding your own microphone, listen, we all, you know, if you are blessed to have a family or friends that you love, it's not like, you know, you want to just X them out of your life because they don't understand your hopes and dreams. But learning to just not share them all with them, hold your own microphone, talk to them about other things, like what's on The Bachelor, or like what's going on with whatever, right? And love them, but put those boundaries in place. And then the other thing is the volume dial, and that's big. And, you know, people have said things to us that have hurt us, probably universally. There's probably not a single person out there that hasn't had someone say something to them that hurts them deeply. And it is human nature to relive it over and over and over and over in our own head, to the point where we carve a groove and it's like it starts to stick and take root. And I think it is so important mentally for me. Like every time that dude who said no one will buy makeup from you, and there were so many other rejections that I talk about in the book. You know, when I went to Sephora and felt like I didn't belong and I didn't fit in and all those things, you know, a lot of times the most hurtful words we hear are the ones we say to ourselves and the ones we make up, and telling ourselves we're not enough and all that kind of stuff. And I have to be mindful and intentional and literally imagine myself when those thoughts come up, stopping them, turning down the volume, and then turning up the volume on something else until I believe it.
I'd love to go a little bit deeper on this process, Jamie, if that's okay with you, because I think you're right. Like, I think people really struggle with that. And I think you see oftentimes, like when people don't make it work, it's because that sense of purpose, it's that sense of meaning. So I'm curious, kind of, how long ago was this when you kind of, you know, you said it took you 2 years until you had this catalyst. How long ago was that?
So 06 and 07, 2006, 2007. And then I eventually just decided, like, I'm going to go for it. And, you know, it's a funny story, but I was on my honeymoon flight to South Africa and wrote the business plan on my honeymoon with my husband, which is, by the way, the least romantic way to start any marriage, is to write your business plan on your honeymoon. And then for anyone listening who runs their business, or with like a loved one or a family or partner or friend, it is wild how difficult it is to navigate like all of the blurring of lines in the relationship. But I think when you go into it the first time, you think like, oh, but you trust that person more than anybody, and it's just going to be great. And And it ended up being great, but really hard. But anyhow, wrote the business plan on our honeymoon flight to South Africa, got back, literally quit our jobs. We poured every penny we had into the business, which wasn't much. It was every penny of savings that we had. And I just thought, if we create a product that actually works, like that really truly works, it's just going to sell, right? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have had this experience where you're like, it's so good, why isn't it selling? Like, why is everyone saying no, and why is it so difficult? And it was 2008 when we had our first product and first couple of products, and I believed in them so much. And, I sent them to every retailer, every department store, every beauty retailer, every online retailer, QVC, which is a live television shopping channel in the US that's broadcast to 100 million homes. And I just had this vision, Nathan, like I saw it so clear. The only problem was no one else did. And it was like, it is so hard when people that you put on a pedestal, right? Like a lot of these beauty retailers, I mean, I used to save my waitressing tip money to shop in their stores. And I just thought for sure they would love this product because it works. But they didn't. And every single one of them said no after no after no after no after no. And one thing I learned that I wish I learned this lesson sooner. I would have saved myself so many nights crying myself to sleep. But what I learned, I was trying to do something different, right? I was trying to use, images of real people. I was trying to sort of change the definition of beauty, and it wasn't just about the products that worked. It was about sort of the big picture thing. And every single one of them would say, like, that's not going to work. Like they would always tell me, Nathan, you need to use images of unattainable aspiration. They'd always say those words, unattainable aspiration. And they would say that women will only buy products from images they can never possibly look like. And I got that that's how it's always been done, but I was trying to do it differently. And the biggest lesson that I wish I had learned sooner is if you are doing something authentic to yourself, which by definition, there's only one of you. So if it's authentic and being done your way, it means it's new, it's novel, it's never been done before. Or if you're doing something crazy, innovative or disruptive, or, a product that's never been done before, when you're doing something different or authentic to you, don't be surprised when, even people that tout themselves as visionaries, or they're, heads of industry or heads of, retail or whatever it might be, don't be surprised if even the experts don't believe in what you're doing. Because what I have learned is so many well-intentioned people, really smart people that are truly just brilliant and believe they are visionaries, they often cannot believe in something unless they have the psychological sort of social proof that it's already been successful in their mind. Unless they've already seen it successful, they have a hard time actually seeing it working. And because they've never seen proof of it before. And a lot of people don't realize that's how they think. They don't know why they're not believing in something. But what I found was so many people, and they were people that, again, well-intentioned and really, really smart, but they're often incapable of seeing something succeeding unless it's already been done. And so for any founder or entrepreneur or person with big goals or dreams, or even, talent and art and creations you want to put out in the world, what I've learned is you have to get really good at cheering for yourself along this journey, because often people will only cheer for you after you've made it, like after you've proven it. And I used to take it so personal and really try to bounce back, try to remember my why, try to get still and hear my own gut that always said to keep going. But it is hard when you get no after no after no. And, 20 no's in, it's like you start to think like, well, maybe this isn't going to work, or was my gut wrong? You know what I mean? And I think those are the moments when you get still, and, some people might pray, some people might meditate, some people might just try to hear what is their gut telling them.
But I think when you get still and you listen for the answer, I think your gut is always more powerful than anyone else's advice. No matter who's telling you no, or you're not the right fit or whatever right now.
Yeah, so I have to ask for you, when did you know that it was going to work?
Well, it was so from the moment we launched It Cosmetics, right? This was in our living room, couldn't afford to pay ourselves, and all the money had gone into our product. And so I remember, this is a funny story that maybe someone listening or watching us will relate to, but after all of these no's from everyone, I was like, all right, you know what? We're going to go direct to consumer. Like, this product is so good. And we couldn't afford to hire anyone to build our site. And so my husband got this big yellow book called HTML for Dummies. And he built the whole first site. And I remember the day it went live. I was like a little kid on Christmas morning. I was so excited because I just knew, right? You say, when do you knew? I felt like I just knew the moment our site went live, it was going to be huge and everyone would just buy because the product's so good. And I'll never forget the morning the website went live, and I was just, freaking out, so excited. And an hour into it, there were no orders. And then several hours went by, no orders. The end of the first day, no orders. And this went on and on, day after day after day after day. And finally, I said to my husband, which is so easy to do if you work with someone that you have a personal relationship with, I was like, it's broken. Like, you did it wrong. Like, there's no way this website's working and we're just getting no orders. Like, the product is too good. There's no way. This went on and on and on. And we were weeks into getting no orders. And then I'll never forget the day our very first order came in. I was like screaming, running around the living room. I was so excited. And my husband comes up to me and he goes, that was me. He goes, I placed the order to prove to you our website's not broken. And I was just like, oh. And so it was just like this for a long time. There was crazy moments with investors that I had hoped were going to be kind of like, the person that was going to save it all and get us into retailers. And I just got some of the most painful no's there. But it was one big moment that happened on QVC, was the real moment I knew. And this was over 3 years into the business. But something happened. And when you just feel like the stars align, or you feel like a congruency with your knowing and what's happening in the universe, and you just feel like a God moment, or whatever you want to call it. After years of QVC saying no, and that's the live 24-hour shopping channel, they broadcast to 100 million homes, and they're really large in the US in particular, and in some other countries around the world as well. But they had said no. I got their head guy on the phone once after a few years of hearing no. I got him on the phone, and his name's Alan Burke, and he was like, thank you. We've reviewed your product with all the buyers, and it's unanimous that you're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. So there were a lot of not just like, oh no, not now, but like, no, right? So we've been hearing no for so long. And I was at a beauty trade show demonstrating our product, and met one of the QVC hosts and talked to the buyers. And making a long story short, but I kind of went for it. You're not supposed to leave your booth, but I kind of went for it, and just finally went up to one of the buyers in person and just like pitched the brand and poured my heart out. And I was freaking out. I remember sweat running down my whole thing. Anyways, every entrepreneur who's almost broke knows this feeling, but I was just like, you don't want to seem desperate, but you also like don't want to have any regret. So you just go for it. Poured my heart out to her, and we got one shot. We got a yes, and we got one big shot on QVC. And not only was this moment about to be the moment I knew this is going to be really big, but it's also the moment I learned, one of the most powerful lessons as it pertains to authenticity as a founder. And so what happened was we got a yes that they would give us one shot, which was a 10-minute segment live on their broadcast. And at that point, we were doing
just 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, which did work. And, but that was all we were doing. And they said in this 10-minute window, in order to hit their sales goal, we would need to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer. And we had no money. So we started applying for SBA loans. 22 banks said no. The 23rd bank, which was California Bank and Trust, said yes. And they gave us an SBA loan just to cover the QVC purchase order. And right, for this one big shot. And then, Nathan, I learned it's consignment. It's a consignment deal, which was like, oh, we're not even, so if anyone listening isn't familiar with consignment, what our terms meant were that, we had to pay for, manufacture, ship in all over 6,000 units of product. But if I went live on the air and nothing sold, or just a few sold, we had to take it all back, and we wouldn't be paid for it. And by the way, if it was like a big breaking news day or something, no one's gonna watch the TV shopping channel, and then you're totally screwed. And so there's all these like risk factors, which normally you should never, right? As an entrepreneur, as a founder, you should never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose, like ever. And, but at this point we were sort of out of options, and we were most likely not going to make it anyways. And so we said yes. And in this process, we hired a couple of third-party consultants that are awesome. And they help a lot of people sell their product in store and their products on QVC. But here's what happened is they all told me the same thing, which was, okay, if you're going to have a chance at succeeding, because most companies that go on QVC, they're not able to hit the sales goals, so they don't come back. They all told me the same thing. If you're going to have your best chance at succeeding, here's what you need to do. In your 10-minute segment, we want you need to use this type of model, which was all flawless skin, kind of like you'd see in beauty ads. And you need to do it this way. And I would say to them, okay, but that's not authentic to like why I created this brand. And I would say like, what if, I put a model in her 70s, and then I put another model who's dealing with acne. And then what if I show my own, like I take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea on national television, and then I prove how the product works. And like, they were mortified, you know what I mean? And they were for me, like they really wanted me to succeed. But again, they'd only seen one type of way succeed. And so I was in this big dilemma, and I flew out to QVC, which is in the state of Pennsylvania in the United States, and I got in a rental car, and I was there a week early, and I sat in this rental car, praying, crying. Like I felt like I remember watching the front door of the building and people going in and out all day, and I knew like the next time I walked through those doors, I was either going to be bankrupt or like my whole life would be changed, but I didn't know which one it was going to be. And I think everyone can relate to this situation where like I was tempted, if I'm going to be really honest, I sat in that car and I was tempted to like not do it authentically. I'm like, well, maybe I would think things like, well, maybe if I do it their way and it works, and then I can make some money, not go bankrupt, then I'll try it my way. Like I had all those thoughts. But I also know you can't fake authenticity. I also know that like there's no way, and this is what a lot of people get wrong in their businesses, there is no way to have a human connection with someone else, like a true connection, unless you show up fully authentically, like for better or worse. There's just no way. And people that even know that forget that your relationship with your customer is the same. It's the same. And I remember sitting in that car going, if I'm truly going to connect with, every person watching at home, like I have to fully show up with my authentic intention for this product. And, I remember thinking, who is my customer? And I kept imagining this single mom, like folding laundry, who was too busy to remember she was beautiful and that she mattered. And I just had this moment in the car where I was like, you know what? I would rather have her turn on her television, even if she's going to give me 5 seconds of her time. I want her to see me showing women that look like her and calling them beautiful and meaning it. Like, even if she buys nothing, I'd rather stand for that than like sell a whole bunch of product and stand for nothing. And so I knew what I had to do, but we know what we have to do often, and it's not the easy thing. It's usually the scary thing, and the risky thing. And I remember walking into the building and into the studio, and we were going to get that one shot. And so I walked in, and right in the big studio, there's these cameras, and the host was there. And then there was a clock that was on the ground that was set at 10 minutes. And then there was a live clock to tell you what was happening in the show. And then, Nathan, I learned that, like, okay, it's all on the line, right? I have this 10-minute window. Everything's on the line. And then I learned you're not guaranteed the 10 minutes. Like, if you go live and your clock starts going and you're not hitting sales goals, like, you could be a minute in and they cut your time all the way down to like 2 minutes left. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm not even guaranteed this. And so it was wild. And one of the scariest and best days of my career and also of my life. I remember the moment the clock started and we were like at 9:59, 9:58, 9:50, and I was like, and I was shaking, I was sweating. Like, I remember I had on 2 pairs of Spanx, which wasn't because of how it wasn't like I needed to look a certain way. I was trying to make sure sweat did not go through my dress. And I wasn't nervous about TV. I was just like, the whole company, like the weight of the whole company was like, it felt like it was hanging in that moment. And I remember the moment on live television where they brought up my before shot. So it was a bare-faced before shot where you can see my bright red, bumpy rosacea. And I remember walking over to all the models, and they were every age and skin tone and skin challenge and size and shape and then I didn't know how we were doing, but I wasn't cut yet, so I knew that was good. And then we got down to it was like 1 minute left, and the host was like, the deep shade's almost gone, the tan shade's almost sold out. And it was literally right at the 10-minute mark where this giant sold out sign came up across the screen. And this was the moment when you say, what's the moment you knew? I remember tears streaming down my face. And I remember the producers were worried I was going to faint. I guess new people faint sometimes because of pressure. And they cut from my presentation and went to like Dyson vacuum or something. And I remember my husband came running through the double doors of the studio, and I was just sobbing. And I'm like, real women have spoken. And I remember he just looked at me and he put his fist up in the air and he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I was just like, ah! And it was just like this moment where it felt like I risked it all. And at the same time, all I did was make a decision from a place of congruency and authenticity. And what I continued to learn as we grew and grew and grew, we eventually became the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And it is to this day. And I was doing over 250 live shows a year myself for many years. And built a team of over 1,000. So I have other people going on. But what I learned after seeing tens of thousands of brands come through the doors and meeting their entrepreneurs and their founders and their heads of sales going on the air, most of them don't make it. And the one big thing I learned is, like, while authenticity alone doesn't automatically guarantee success, that inauthenticity guarantees failure. And what I would observe is that the very few people that would make it with their brands, they were never the ones that, even necessarily had the best product or the most money behind their marketing or anything else. It was when the person they had go on air was the same on air as they were in the green room. Whether they were extroverted or introverted or wild, or it didn't matter. But there was that sort of like congruency and that through line of authenticity that you can't fake, and people feel it. And so the people that were truly authentic, who they were in the green room, but then all of a sudden they're live in front of 100 million homes and they're the same person, that's who customers would connect with. And for me, that was one of the most powerful lessons, because, we're now in a digital world where everyone's worried about how they're showing up in every digital platform and direct to consumer and on social media. And now more than ever, people can get distracted by what everyone else is doing. And the second you start to dilute your own authenticity or your own secret sauce, that's when you're in trouble. And so I think now more than ever, this lesson is so important.
Yeah, wow. What an incredible story. I'm lost for words.
You and Paulo, everything you've worked towards, you are now going on national television in front of 10 million homes. The light comes on. It's you, a camera, and the viewer. I can't imagine how nervous, how fearful, and what that moment must have felt like. You talk about sports, being an athlete, the bright lights are on. It's a big game, and your future career depends on how you play in this moment. And there you were in that moment. How did you feel first off? Like, what did you feel like? Was an outer body experience? And then tell us what happened.
Yeah, I felt, so I'm never nervous for TV, right? Because that's what I did my career. But in this moment, exactly what you said, I was literally shaking like a leaf, like when Scooby-Doo would see a ghost in cartoons. Like I was like shaking so much. I had this whole demonstration planned on my wrist that shows how our concealer doesn't crease. And I tried to do it. And my hand was shaking so much. The host grabbed my hand, shoved it under the podium on live TV. And I literally, I remember in that moment, the way I was able to get through it was I had to make it about something bigger than myself, because every second, every moment I would start to go back into my own head, I'd be like, oh, my dress feels a little tight right now. Oh, what are people thinking about my bright red rosacea on national? I was like, oh, no. Like, or, oh, is my business going to go out? Right. Because if you try to sell, nothing sells on top of it all. I had to go back to like, why am I doing this? This isn't about me. This is about every woman and person out there that needs to see a new definition of beauty. Like it's not about me. Right. And so it was like that why. And I would imagine for every athlete too, it's like, from their own story to their family to the reason that they want to win, right? It has to be so much bigger than themselves. The fight to make you fight hard enough to not quit when times are hard and to not get in your own head when times are scary, right? And this time was scary, and I was shaking like a leaf, and I barely remember the first minute or two, and then I remember my bright red rosacea on national, because QVC's live to 100 million homes, so. And there's no script, no nothing. It's all live, right? And so you're just live, exactly what you said, staring at a camera, knowing 100 million homes it's broadcast live. And all of a sudden I see on national television, my bright red, bare-faced rosacea. And then I just remember and then I went over to the models, right? And it was all real women, every age, shape, size, skin challenge, skin problems, story. And it was like, for me, the most important, meaningful experience, because I was there live on TV, not just calling them beautiful models, but like meaning it. You know what I'm saying? And you cannot fake authenticity and just meaning it. And I'll never forget, we were about a minute left in the cell. And I was like, yes, they haven't cut my time, right? But I had no idea what was going on. And we were about a minute left. And the host is like, the deep shade is almost gone. The tan shade, we're down to 200. I was like, and then all of a sudden, literally with like seconds left, the sold out sign came up across the screen. And I've never done this before. On national TV, tears start streaming down my face. They cut, the producers thought I was going to faint. I found out later, and they came rushing in, but they go on to the next product, which is on another stage, which is probably Dyson vacuum or something. They cut. And I remember Paulo, my husband Paulo, rushing through the double doors of the studio. And I look over at him sobbing, and I'm like, real women have spoken. And I'm like sobbing. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. Like that's all he cared about. And I was like, ah! I was like sobbing. And John, that one airing led to 5 that year, 101 the next year, 150 the year after. And then we did 250 live shows a year on QVC for 8 years in a row. Still do. The company still does. Right now, we built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And it is right now at this moment. And the only reason I share that isn't to be like, oh, isn't this cool? No, 3 years, they told us no. 3 years, they told us you're not the right fit. Alan Burke says you're not the right fit for us or our customers. And then we built the largest brand in their history, right? And the coolest part about this, and this is why I trust God's timing in everything, is the coolest part about this is Alan Burke, the guy who rejected me, right? he is, after we launched on QVC, he became one of my dearest friends, my and Paula's dearest friends, greatest mentors, biggest champions, all those things, right? And is right now, to this day, one of my dearest friends. And then he retired from QVC. And then we hired him in a paid position on our advisory board. And I remember this moment where I realized, oh my gosh, the guy who rejected me is now working for me. I was like, wow, it was like this full circle moment that was huge. And the other thing about it, right? So, and by the way, no one can tell you you're not the right fit. Only God can tell you that. No one can tell you you're not the right fit. No one can tell you that, you know, your cheeks are too red, or your body's too big, or you don't come from the right family, or you don't come from the right place, or no one can tell you you're the right fit. And that's why it's so important to turn down the volume on that kind of stuff and to learn how. It's really why I wrote this book, because I feel like so many people, and I've learned this because I get so many DMs on my Instagram all the time with people saying like, you know, oh, I'm about to give up because of this, or I feel stuck because of this. And what I realized is, oh, it's because we turn the volume up, and we, on all those things, on the people who tell us we're not enough, on the business success we see around us at that moment that tells us, oh, we must not be onto something. Maybe our gut's wrong, right? It's like, that's the stuff we listen to. And then we never learn to truly tune in. And the last thing I'll say about the setback setups thing again, is that Alan Burke, even though like he crushed my heart and I sobbed myself to sleep for days in a row when he said, you're not the right fit, you know, all that, I learned later that sometimes in life, we don't know what we don't know. And you're saying that, you know, that rejection is God's protection. In this case, I learned Alan Burke was right when he said no. Like, I just didn't know what I didn't know. Paulo and I, we weren't yet operationally sophisticated enough to handle an account the size of QVC. We would have failed. So had he said yes sooner, we would have failed. And it was like, oh, wow, he was right all along. Again, another example, serendipitous grace. It's just painful rejection at the time. So he was right all along.
Such a great example that here you thought, you know, he was saying you weren't the right fit, but you really weren't ready. And if you would have done it at that point, you would have succeeded like you did. So the delay was also a blessing. So there's rejection, that's God's protection. There's also delays that we think we're ready now and we're not. I remember when I was speaking when I was younger and I wasn't getting on the big stages. I'm like, why aren't I getting on the big stage? And I was all upset and I wasn't ready for the big stage. If I would have gotten on the big stage, I would have failed miserably. So such a great lesson. But Jamie, how do you get over the frustration? Because a lot of people listening are starting something, or they're not getting the promotion. It's not happening fast enough. They want to create something, but again, they're going through the struggle and the muck and they're not receiving what they want at that time. You knew you had something that was better than the competition. You knew you had a great product, and yet other people weren't recognizing that greatness in the product. And they also weren't recognizing your greatness early on.
You mentioned there's an exercise that the audience can do. Will you walk us through the exercise?
Yes.
Let's put Michael on the spot.
Okay, let's do it. So in that spot, you guys, so I applied this exercise, and then I'll take everyone through. When I walked in the building, we got the 10 minutes. We had the one shot. And I applied this exercise about instead of attaching a certain meaning to all past rejections, I reframed them, believed in empowering meaning around them, and was able to walk in the QVC building in this one shot, which I learned, by the way, walking in, you're not guaranteed the 10 minutes. If you go live and you have to hit the sales numbers, by the second, if you're not hitting them, you might think you have 8 minutes left in your 10-minute thing, but they cut your time live. So I remember walking in the building, I remember the 10-minute clock, and it started like 9:59, 9:58. And I just remember like, okay, I can trust what other people are telling me to do, or I can go with my knowing and take my makeup off and try to connect with real women over what I know I'm supposed to do with this brand, over who I am authentically. And everything was on the line, because if it didn't work, we would have gotten bankrupt. And I remember like I had on double Spanx, not because they cared how I looked, but I was like sweating so much because I was scared shitless. Like I was like, it was one of the most defining moments in my life of trusting my knowing over all the no's happening around me. And in that moment when the lights went on and the countdown clock started, I remember the moment when my bare-faced, bright red before shot came up on national TV. I remember walking over to the models, like every age and shape and size and skin challenge that they were dealing with and skin tone, and calling them beautiful and meaning it. And I remember we got down to like the 1 minute mark, and I didn't know how we were doing, but we weren't cut yet. And then the host says, the deep shade's almost gone. The tan shade's almost sold out. It was the 10-minute mark because I had risked it all and went against everyone's advice and like tried to stay true to the authenticity of the brand.
And most people would never take their makeup off on live TV. And so that's authentic. It's real. And it's also,
especially then.
And it's showing you, like, you also can see the transformation in real life as opposed to these airbrush images.
Yeah. And it was just, at that time, it hadn't been done. And I just remember, like, at the exact 10-minute mark, I didn't know how we were doing. I knew they hadn't cut me yet. And the 10-minute mark hit and the giant sold out sign came up across the screen. And I started crying on national television. And I remember they cut from me and like went to Dyson Vacuum or something. And my husband comes rushing through the double doors. I thought he was going to hug me because I'm like, ah. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I'm like, real women have spoken. And I was like sobbing. And that one airing turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year. And eventually I did over 1,000 live shows on QVC. And we built,
holy shit.
Yeah, we built the biggest beauty brand in their history. And it still is to this day. And I only share that because it was years of them saying, not only no, but you're not the right fit.
And don't do that.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah. So, and all the third-party consultants that were like, this isn't going to work. And so, yeah, it was another huge lesson of trusting your own knowing over everyone else's no's. But had I not learned how to apply this framework, that it could have never happened. And so in Worthy, there's a whole chapter called When You Change Your Relationship with Rejection, You Change Your Life. And so here's the thing. As human beings, all of us, right, we're wired to avoid pain at all costs. Like for most of us, we're wired to avoid pain at all costs, which is why a lot of us will not go to the gym to avoid the pain of working out, even though we know we want the outcome or whatever it might be. And so for a lot of us, we have a meaning, and you know how everything is the meaning we assign to things. And for a lot of us, we have a negative meaning we assign to rejection or failure, which makes sense that they both suck. But we assign a lot of pain to both of them. And so it keeps us stuck. It keeps us from going after things. A lot of us have let them take root in our self-worth, and we think we're a rejecter, we're a failure because of past mistakes. And so there's a 4-part framework. So that totally flips this on its head. And it's how I was able to endure hundreds of rejections and still keep going and not think, oh, I'm a failure or a reject, or I need to stop, or my intuition's wrong. And this is big. So the first R it's called reveal. And this is a question for everyone listening, and for the two of you and me, and everyone listening, like, answer this really honestly with yourself. So when you imagine yourself getting rejected or failing at something, what's the very first thought that goes through your head? Like, without even thinking about it. Like, what's the first thing you think when you get rejected or you fail at something?
On to the next.
Literally, that's so weird that you just said that. I was going to say, what's next?
But I would say...
But I've had hundreds of rejections too, so that's a muscle that I've built. If you would have asked me 15 years ago, I don't think I would have said that.
You're talking to two people that have had a lot of rejection.
But that's also 6 million hours of therapy on the podcast with people like you. So I don't think I'm the fair person to ask.
We used to get, I remember early days starting we see it like personally offended. Like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody doesn't get it. I can't believe someone doesn't see the vision. And you realize, like, they just at the time either believe it's not the right fit, or they're not going to make money, or whatever it may. It really is nothing to. It may have nothing to do with you personally. Just like they don't believe.
I've learned through meditation not to let history define my future.
Yes.
But if you asked me 10 years ago, the answer would not be what's next.
No, for sure.
No, but here's what I love. Okay, I want everyone listening to hear what's next, right? So that's big, because success leaves clues, right? That famous saying. And when people see where the two of you are right now, and then they wonder, okay, what are the tools to get there? The fact that you both said what's next, so that is your current definition of rejection or failure, okay? Without us knowing it. Everyone listening, when I said, what's the first thought you think of when you get rejected or fail at something? For me, most of my life, it's, oh yeah, there's proof I'm not enough. I was at a CEO summit recently. literally 1,000 people in the room, and I asked this question, the answers that came out of people's mouths, oh my gosh. So when I said, what's the first thought, and maybe people listening can relate to this, what's the first thought you have when you get rejected or failed? Like, be really honest. Like, don't think about it and come up with an answer. Like, be really honest, like your first instinct. People were shouting out things like, I suck, I'm a loser, I'm stupid, I shouldn't have ever tried. What was I thinking? It was like, and people were crying. And this was a business conference. And I think people had never actually even realized the first thing that they think. And for me, most of my life is like, yep, proof again, I'm not enough, right? I don't say that out loud. I don't admit, I would never even be aware of that. But that was my first thought. For the two of you now, which is huge, and this is such a great example. I love that you shared that. It's what's next, right? So okay, everyone who just went through that, just take note of that first thought you had. And for some of us, there's a few of them. For some of us, we think, oh, I'm not enough. I suck. I'm a loser. I'm stupid. I shouldn't have even tried. The list goes on and on. For Ed, I'm not enough, still to this day. So you take note of that. And that's your current definition of rejection and failure. And why this is important is because for so many of us, if our current definition is painful, we will not go for the things. We will stay stuck. We won't go after it because we'll associate so much pain with the potential of rejection or failure. And so the first step that I go through in here is, okay, what's your current definition? Then the next step is to redefine it. And so this is why I'm excited about what you guys shared, because you've gone through this, and success leaves clues, right? And so two things. When I shared like that season of hundreds and hundreds of rejections, there was one super painful rejection where I was crying my eyes out under my covers. And I just decided to Google everyone I admired most in business who had like changed the world, or thought leaders who had helped heal humanity through love. And I just was Googling all of them one day and reading their stories. And I was like, they've all gone through countless rejections and failures. They're just the brave ones willing to keep going anyway. And
we still get a ton of no's.
Yeah,
like
me
still,
too.
Like all the time.
Me too.
Like even for this show, for example.
Yeah.
Like we will ask all sorts of. I think people like will see guests like yourself come on, and they don't realize for every one yes from someone like yourself, there's like 10 no's. Like it's not the right time, not the right fit. But again, it's like on to the next. Like okay, well, who's going to say yes?
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima. Baby Kern Lima.
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.